Hi. As Julie said, I'm going to speak to you today about the research evidence to support the use of games for the development and assessment of 21st century skills and the potential of that to affect real business impact. So first of all, why do we do research? Why do centres like Learnovate do research in the learning technology space? I want you to consider that just for a moment. With all of the technologies that you've seen over the last 2 days, I'm sure your heads are spinning at this stage. But how do we know the potential of these technologies for learning? We're currently just scraping the surface, and that's particularly true for games. So the research that I'm going to talk to you about today is coming out of the Learnovate Centre. It's a technology centre. It's based in Trinity College, Dublin, and it's government funded. It's funded by the Irish government to support Irish industry. And the idea is that we take the cutting edge research in academia, we bring it out, and we apply it to our industry partners' challenges. So I'm going next, and nothing's happening. Okay, so our industry partners are in the K-12, in the school space, in the higher ed space, and in the corporate space. And today I'm going to talk to you about challenges faced by our partners in the corporate space and how we're going to use games to address those challenges. So in the corporate space in 2015, there are challenges around workforce capabilities. There are 2 key challenges. The first one is a global skills shortage, and the second one relates to a skills gap around those role-agnostic skills, role-agnostic generic skills such as problem-solving, collaboration, leadership. Those skills that enable organizations to be agile, to be responsive to change, and to be competitive in a knowledge economy. So they're really important to organizations. But the problem essentially is, how do organizations identify those at the recruitment stage so they get the right people in the door? And of their existing workforce, how do they assess them and how do they develop them? So organizations are having a serious problem around these complex skills. So they're looking to us to leverage technology to actually enable them to do that. So our challenge, if you like, is to look at these skills. These skills are unlike other skills. They're complex skills. They're multi-dimensional, multifaceted skills. And the current assessment methods that we apply to these do not work. They're one-dimensional and they're very subjective. So we have to look beyond current assessment methods to evaluate these complex skills. So our task in Learnovate was to put on our thinking caps and to come up with a technology demonstrator that would enable organizations to effectively and objectively assess those skills. So we thought, what sort of vehicle are we going to use to assess these complex skills? And immediately, games came to mind. So currently, games are being used for training. And they're being used for procedural training, compliance training. Mark's going to talk to you about how effective they are for that. But for us at Learnovate, we wanted to go beyond that. We wanted to go beyond the surface and to really exploit or to explore their full potential. When people play games, they become completely immersed. And when they're immersed, they leave breadcrumbs of evidence, breadcrumbs of behaviors around the place. So we thought, what if we could capture those behaviors? And what if we could analyze those behaviors as evidence of problem solving and critical thinking and all of those other complex skills that we exhibit when we're playing games? We don't even realize that we're actually doing it. So our project is called the iLearn Research Project. So what is iLearn? iLearn is it's an immersive learning environment for the assessment and development of 21st century skills. Now, we are doing research, so we had to narrow our focus. We had to pick 2 skills. We couldn't do all of them. So we focused on problem solving and collaboration. We created the world so that we could elicit these problems or these behaviors. So the pedagogical model underpinning the world is a game-based, authentic task. And we just didn't want to focus on reward. That's only one game mechanic, but it wouldn't be enough to elicit all of the behaviors that we were looking for. So in it, we had an attainable challenge. It couldn't be too hard, but it certainly couldn't be too easy, because we were looking for evidence of persistence and grit and all of those things that employers find valuable in employees. So we had an attainable challenge. We had flow to engage learners. It was a team-based task. We wanted to elicit collaborative behaviors, so it had to be team-based. We had feedback, curiosity, reward, all of the team, or all of the game mechanics. We wanted to draw on all of them, but get a balance. So the whole idea was that these would elicit problem-solving and collaboration evidence for us. So to do this, to implement the pedagogical framework, we had to have a certain number of, first of all, I need to tell you, in terms of the team, the task was to improve the energy efficiency of a street called Eco Street. So there was a team task, and each of the players had to contribute to that task. So on Eco Street, each player had a house. So they were improving their own house, but at the same time, they were collectively improving the street, and that was the team objective. So the rewards in it was, if they improved it to a certain level, they either got a gold, silver, or a bronze medal. And if they shared useful information, they got a collaboration badge. So these were the incentives, if you like, and the rewards that were in there. To implement the pedagogical framework, iLearn comprises a number of technologies. So in there is the immersive learning environment itself. We used OpenSim, and we customized it for the pedagogical framework. We also integrated an SSR, that means social search and recommender technology. We integrated that into the world, and that acted as a conduit for problem solving and collaboration, and it captured evidence for us. We also had data capture technology in there, and that aggregated evidence from multiple sources in the world. Remember, it's not just about what people are doing, it's about what they're saying as they're actually doing something. So you're pulling evidence from multiple sources. So having done all that good work, we had to trial it. It was really important to us to see if this actually worked. So we took we had 109 students trial it first. We're going to do 2 trials. Our first trial was with 16 and 17-year-olds. Our next trial is with a corporate audience. So in terms of the trial, we had 109 16 and 17-year-old students. The first thing we wanted to look at was the engagement value of this before we ever moved on to looking at the problem solving and collaboration effectiveness. So in terms of engagement, we looked at what they were saying first. So in terms of what they were actually saying, we had things like, this kid is buzzing, it's super, it's fun, it's deadly, brilliant. It was overwhelmingly positive. The kids, when they were going through it, they had earphones on. So there were just 2 ways that they could collaborate with each other. One was through chat, and the other one was through voting and recommending useful resources to each other. But the chat feedback was overwhelmingly positive. And I'll just tell you an aside here. We had thought, we'll run a sentiment analysis tool over this, and it will easily pull out everything. But a sentiment analysis tool could not figure out this kid is buzzing or this is deadly was taken as a negative. So it is important when we're designing things that we bear in mind the cohort that we're actually designing things for. and also in evaluating evidence, it is important. They may have their own vernacular, as they do here. And we looked at the task completion, and by task completion here, we meant those who actually solved the problem. So there was virtually 80% of them completed the task, and it was more than we expected. It was a complex task, but 100% of them stayed on and did not want to leave the world. So the engagement was really, really high. 80% of them engaged in task-related chat. Now, it is important to remember, this is a virtual world. There are multiple regions in the world. They could have been teleporting, flying, going off task and going off piece completely. They didn't, and this surprised us a bit. So this is some of the evidence that we're pulling in terms of engagement, and it really is very compelling. So then in terms of the problem solving, so we move on to the real meat of the experiment. We were blown away by this. So we had to think how we would evaluate it. So problem solving, when any of us are solving a problem, we typically go through a number of stages. We identify a problem, we search for a solution, we validate our hypothesis. So there's a number of stages. So we looked at a number of steps, and we could see the evidence just pouring out of the world in terms of what they were actually doing, saying, thinking. So this is just some of the evidence that we have. So we looked at how they were searching for a solution. We saw them put in their search. We saw them revise their search terms. It was incredible, the amount of evidence that we got about that. So in terms of validating their selected problem-solving strategy, again, in the house, there was a meter under the stairs, as there is in most houses. So when they replaced an energy inefficient item with an energy efficient item, the number of them that went and actually checked, it was optional. They didn't have to go and check, but they were electing to check whether or not what they had chosen to do worked. In terms of what they were saying to each other, and this was really amazing, it was almost, this is manna from heaven for us. I could probably spend a bit more money within my budget and go for an appliance that uses less kilowatts. So it's like this guy's thinking out loud. And this one here, are you doing all of the research and then all of the buying, or research, buy, research, buy? The idea was that they had to research the items and buy them, but they could do them all at one go, or buy and then install and then buy another one. So we can see the articulations here are actually articulating problem-solving activity. So huge amounts of information. Our data set is enormous on this. So in terms of collaboration evidence then, again, we're pulling evidence from across the world. We could see that they were voting and tagging on more resources than they actually needed to. So they're collaborating through voting and tagging, but they're also collaborating here. Now, this isn't my spelling, it was the students. So need any help, I'd advise you to go for lighting. Don't forget to tag and vote 5 things. Don't get liquid crystal windows. But this is an interesting one. Tag it to me. They had an expectation from using Facebook that things would work as they do in Facebook. So they thought that when they tagged something, that their friends would get a message, or their team members would get a message. And that was really interesting. So there's an expectation that technology will work as their social technologies work. And this came across a few times to us. So if we then look at, if we move up then up to team level, so here we're comparing the overall problem-solving activity. So the winning team, the team that solved the problem most effectively, we actually found that we got insight into the team's behavior. So this is one of the winning teams. We could see from our logs that they were highly systematic, self-organizing. They divided up the tasks early on. They were competitive, focused, driven. And this goes beyond with what we expected. It goes beyond it in the sense that, again, for organizations who are thinking about identifying leadership skills, identifying dynamics of teams, the insight here is huge. And remember, it's the game that's behind this. It's the game mechanics that are they're causing the flow of these behaviors, or they're eliciting these behaviors within the world. And the sort of things they were saying to each other was, which ones are we picking? Will I do installation? Dividing up the tasks, doing it for the team. This came across a few times. Again, this team spirit, they acted as a unit. And giving advice to other members of the team to help them solve the problems within their own house. In the world, we also had a pedagogical agent. And in this case, well, we're calling it a coach, because for higher order skills, like your problem solving and critical thinking, it's very difficult to teach problem solving. You can't do an e-learning course that will teach problem solving. It's a complex skill. But here we had the pedagogical agent in the world, getting the data, seeing what the students were doing. So each of those whiteboards there represents the meter in each student's house. So she could see what each student was doing, how they were performing, but you could also see the live stream of data coming out from the world as to what people were doing, saying, thinking. So the pedagogical agent on site, just scaffolding, not directing. So we thought, well, and it wasn't part of our initial research, so what is the effect of the pedagogical agent on the outcome, okay, or the coach on the outcome? So we thought, did people who got a gold or silver medal, did more of them have a chat with the pedagogical agent? And could the pedagogical agent be directing them? So we had a look at that because we thought, yeah, this is too obvious. But actually, no. The pedagogical agent in the world was actually scaffolding them, providing motivational feedback. Well done, great bit of research, great result. If you could change something now to get a gold badge, what would you change? So she wasn't overtly leading them to the right solution. She was coaching them. Well done, our first gold badge of the day on Eco Street. And this one here for collaboration coaching. Why don't you see what your team think? So it was really interesting for us. We thought we had this cracked. We said, yeah, we're going to troll through this. We're going to see that the pedagogical agent was actually steering them towards the right answer. How many? 10? 5? Oh, 5. Okay. Right, so I'm right on cue. So in terms of game-based immersive learning environments, they can provide us with multidimensional, objective evidence of these complex skills. We've just done one trial. We're going to do another one in the next few months in a corporate setting with a different task. So we're going to see if we can replicate our results in this. So what are the implications, if you like, for corporate learning? Well, when you think about it, if you can get the right people in the door with this holistic skill set, it has implications for recruitment, onboarding, training, performance management, workplace management. So it's right across the board. 1 hour is all those kids spent in the world to solve the problem. And we got shed loads of data as to their ability in relation to complex skills. So Mark is now going to talk to you about the effectiveness of games for training. This is what the research is telling us. It's going beyond the effectiveness for training and learning. It's going towards assessment of these valuable, critical skills. Thank you.
Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask Lynda now before we hand over to Mark?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you compare this to a control group, or how did that work?
So the question was, did you compare this to a control group?
The control group, well, it's very difficult to compare it to a control group, because our questions here were, our research questions were, could we elicit these behaviors in an immersive learning environment? So the control group we used in this was one where we had a recommender, and in the other group, in the test group, in the test group we had a recommender, and in the control group we didn't. But we didn't have a control group that did the same task outside of an immersive learning environment. But that would ultimately, you would go down that route at some stage. But when we think about it, how many of us that create e-learning and do it for so many years, how many of us can actually say, this is the impact, this is the uplift of our e-learning? So we really didn't have much to actually compare it to. Yeah.
Do you expect to have a different learner profile from the 16 to 17-year-olds as you go to the corporate training?
We will have a different profile in terms of the age and probably the motivation and the whole lot. We don't know what the outcome will be until we actually look at it, and we don't know what the team dynamics will be. We have no idea until we actually go there. The task will be pretty similar, but it will be more authentic in terms of the workplace in which it takes place. So we think we know what the profile of the learners will be in terms of motivation for career development and so on. But it's blue skies.
I run a game-based learning company.
Yeah.
The adult learner, we have a lot of deep statistics.
Yeah.
You can get away with 45 to 50 minutes types of training opportunities. When you go out to the digital native, you better get it done in 8 to 10 minutes because their attention span is very, very small.
Well, that's what we had thought with these 16 to 17-year-olds. And we actually, the director of the centre, who's actually here today, had cautioned about maybe having it in the centre because they're a rowdy bunch, and we thought we'd have them going off-piste. It was incredible. There was not a sound. So whether it was the complexity of the task, whether it was the engagement of the whole game, we're not quite sure. We're still finding all of that out. And I appreciate that normally a piece of e-learning, the shorter the better. But there was something about the construct that engaged them for that whole hour and led them to actually want to complete it. Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that the teachers were a little surprised with that as well. They weren't expecting the students to be as engaged with the world as well.
Yeah.
But I think I have a 16 and a 14-year-old, and they now live their television. They follow people. They do different things, and I don't mean social media-wise. They're more patient to be online than maybe even some of the older people. That's their life. They don't watch TV. They actually get news. They get up to date. They do their studies. They get questions for every. So I think maybe their mindset, their adjustment, and that makes them be engaging enough. They feel like they're not motivated.
Yeah.
Watching video and being part of it, and they're submerged.
Absolutely, and something that reinforced that was we had expected they would go off-piste and go exploring and teleporting in the world, and they didn't. And so we're just starting our research, if you like, and it will be so interesting to see it when we go to the corporate.
Thank you.